Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, wherever you're listening from. It's me, Lisa, and this is Untitled, the podcast without a name. I want to use this episode, the third episode, to tell you a bit more how I got here. Not in terms of achievements, but in terms of how my relationship with movement and activity, my mind and body changed over time. Because that didn't happen quickly, and it definitely didn't happen in a straight line. Not at all. So I started exercising in 2017, lifting weights, strength training, going to the gym. And before that time, movement and activity had always been something I approached to, how can I say it? Um, to burn calories, to keep my body weight low as I can, to be honest. So when I did train, it often came from an unhealthy place. I have been dealing with an eating disorder for over 21 years at this point. And while I was very disciplined in many ways, counting calories, um, walking a lot, restricting food, starving, all these things, that discipline wasn't healthy or supportive, right? It was more unhealthy and controlling, obsessive, and exhausting. So, 2017, my daughter was already 2.5 at that time when I started going to the gym. And what really put pressure on me was I didn't want to be a bad mom. I didn't want to be a bad role model. I didn't want to be the mom not eating. And I didn't want to be the mom not eating well, counting calories, thinking about food all the time. And I knew I had to change a lot. And to be honest, it felt like I have to change everything. Like I have to change my whole quote unquote identity because my eating disorder was all I know or all I knew back then. So when I started training in a healthier way and eating more balanced and um, to support my training, things slowly began to change, especially mentally. Not because I suddenly did everything right, but because I stayed consistent. Consistent in a way that kept me on the healthier side of life. And it's, when you have a pattern, when you have something going on, um it's really hard to change and to leave your comfort zone. It's really hard to change stuff and get a different result when you always, you move forward and then you come to this point and it gets really, really hard and you get stressed and overwhelmed and it just feels like your life is on the line. And then we go back. We go back to what's familiar. We go back to what feels more easy and what we know. And that's the wrong path. You have to keep going and you have to overcome this point. And it feels really hard, but that's actually the point you have to overstep to get different results. And not just when it comes to an eating disorder, not just when it comes to any kind of um, addiction, or it's just life. That's a rule or a law of life, right? So around the same time, I experienced my second back injury in, I think it happened April 2017. Yeah. So the first one had already happened years earlier in summer 2008. I was 23 back then. And by the end of 2017, I had to undergo my second back surgery. So that period forced me to rethink everything again. How I train and how I move and how I'm going to do things. Because my doctors already told me back then lower back issues, nerve pain issues, and everything around that area would likely be an issue forever for me. So when I was able to train again in 2018, I started exercising only with my body weight. And I wanted to try something new. So I became interested in Pilates. Um, at first, it was more a practical thing. I knew I need some stability and strength, and I have to support my spine. That's what I knew. But over time, something else happened. And I started noticing how these slower movements affected me mentally and also emotionally. And that eventually led me to yoga. So the funny thing is, yoga had always been there, and people had suggested it to me for years, but I wasn't ready for it. I was not open to, I was not even open to try all the years before. It was too slow, not active enough. It just felt like this is not a workout and I don't want to do it. Today I know better. Yoga is actually not a workout and it's not supposed to be a workout. Um, so when I finally was ready and I could open my mind, it changed a lot. I practiced yoga for almost 2 years, I want to say, before I decided to dig a little bit deeper and start teacher training. I wanted to do this for myself to actually learn more, and then COVID happened. So it's 2020 and COVID happened. We all know, we've been there. So everything slowed down. Everything was closed. We couldn't do anything. Training, progress, it all took longer than we all expected. So from 2020 to 2022, I focused almost entirely on my own practice and teaching. And I can say I grew a lot emotionally, mentally. My body changed as well. And eventually felt the need to rebalance again and bring more weights back into my life. And I started walking a lot during the first lockdown. Gyms were closed, and there was nothing else to do. So I started walking a lot, like 1 hours, 2 hours a day. Being out in nature, that just helped me to actually grow in a different way. It was kind of a healing thing to be outside and walk. So I went back to lifting weights and doing yoga at the same time. About 6 months after that shift, something unexpected happened. I started running, and that was not on my plan. Um, I hated running, to be honest. So a group at work signed up for a 4-mile race, which is 7K. And I joined because they convinced me to do it. Like, they said, "Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Let's just do it." And until then, running was really not my thing. I had never gone beyond, I think, 3 miles or something. And that was years earlier in, I think, 2015 or 2016. So, like I said, during the lockdown, I mostly walk. I walked a lot. And the race was in May 2023. So at first, the distance felt a little bit intimidating. Um, to be, it's a funny story because I did my research, and I always do my researches. And I was sitting there. I wanted to take it seriously. So I was actually carb loading the day before for a 4-mile race, which is a funny fact. Thinking about that now. And I know better now. So finishing the race gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Um, pride, pride and confidence. Um, I remember I walked home with this ridiculous medal around my neck. Remember, it was a 4-mile race. I had this medal and I felt like I had run a full marathon. So I walked home so proud. Um, I was actually surprised, and obviously, I was capable of running. So I kept going slowly, step by step. And I thought every time I need a proud moment, I could do this. So that's what I did. Every time I needed a proud moment, every time I needed some confidence, I went outside and ran. And I extended my distance little by little, so step by step until I reached 6 miles, which is 10K. And that was not enough anymore. And I set a personal goal. It was not a race, it was just for myself. And I wanted to run a half marathon distance, which is 13 miles, 21K. So since then, running has become a steady part of my life, right? And it was about a year after I started running, I met someone who slowly became very important in my life, in my journey. Someone who became like a big support and like a mentor, I want to say, like a coach. And that has been a huge part of my journey as a person and as a runner or an athlete. So in June 2024, I ran 26 miles, 42 kilometers for the first time. And the story behind that is you always want to do more, like the goals, you have to set bigger goals, right? So I remember it was a Friday at work. My boss was sitting there and she's running too. So I said, I mean, a half marathon, I did that so many times and I want to run a full marathon distance. And she said, yeah, half marathon, everybody can do that. That's not a big deal. If I can do it, everybody can do it. But I don't believe you actually can run 24 kilometers, 26 miles. That's what she said. So I made up my mind. I mean, the goal was set already. So I wanted to do it on the weekend or the weekend after, the upcoming weekend. I went back home and on Saturday I woke up and I decided to go. And that's when I did it. I ran my first marathon distance in June 2024. And I was, it's not really funny. It's kind of sad. So when I was done, I took a picture of my watch of the distance, and I was waiting for the pride to kick in. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. I was waiting for the proud feeling um back then when I was running these 4 miles, and it didn't happen. I There was not really something big. So yeah. Um in November 2024, I ran my first official marathon, and that was actually the New York City Marathon, which was a big deal for me. I was injured. I came back from an injury for a month and I couldn't train. Like, really, I had almost no run in training. And 2 weeks before the marathon, I actually didn't know if I really can do it. I mean, I told myself, if I cannot run, I'm gonna walk, and if I cannot walk, I'm gonna crawl. That was clear for me, but um so yeah, I made it through. I crossed the finish line, and what matters most to me is not really how far I can go or the distance. Actually, looking back, it's that my relationship with my body feels so different. I'm focusing on training to be strong and to become stronger. I eat to support myself. I'm fueling my body the right way to be able to train on a higher level, not just for fun, because I have big goals. So I no longer train to control myself in a negative way. And I became this version of myself by learning to listen, to adjust through pain and injury and change, and to keep going in a way I could actually live with it, and be a better version of myself. So I train to be strong now. I eat to support myself, not to control myself. And I'm still learning, still adjusting, still listening. And that's the journey. That's the journey I've been in, and that's the journey ahead. There is always something to learn, and there is always something to achieve. So, if you're still figuring that out for yourself, you're not behind. You're just in a different place, maybe on your own path. And my journey is just one version of a journey. It's not a template, and it's not the destination or a final destination. I just see it as my journey is proof that change can happen slowly, and that this change still matters. So, in the next episode, I want to slow things down again and talk about starting where you are and not where you think you should be. Thank you for listening. I will talk to you soon.